today we'll continue our journey to describe the igneous texture, that is the most abundant rock if you consider the lithosphere, the upper part at the crust. It is present in form of outcrops that you can find all around you. There are some mutual relations of crystals. There are different patterns. Some of them we have already studied, and now we will just see the combination of them. Okay, let me see if the mic of somebody is on. So I request you guys, whenever you join the class, just off your audio. That's so that nobody get disturbed in the class. Okay. Anyways, today we will continue our journey to describe some of the igneous textures that represents the mutual relationship of crystals. Actually, we have already studied crystallinity, granularity, and now it is time that we just go a little deeper and see what are these various terminology that we use for mutual relationship of crystals. As we have already seen some equigranular textures and in equigranular textures, oriented textures, intergrowth textures. So some of these textures we will see, like the banded texture and cavity textures, that in the coming slides. Particularly, textures may belong to more than one of these categories, and some also belong to categories of crystallinity, granularity, and crystal shape. Some of this section they give reference to some of the previous. We have already done the thin sections, but you can see whenever needed we can go back. Okay, the first is equigranular textures. As you guys know, euhedral, subhedral, and anhedral, and there is an addition of granular term that was missing in the previous classification that we did for equigranular textures. Here we call the euhedral granular texture as penny-idiomorphic granular, and the subhedral granular can also be called, these are the synonyms. Okay, the subhedral can be called as hapidiomorphic, and the anhedral can be called as allotriomorphic granular. Don't confuse with these terms, because the geologists or petrologists normally they like to coin new terms and name, but these are very simple things. Euhedral granular means that most of the crystals are euhedral and are of uniform size. Subhedral granular means bulk of the crystals are subhedral and of uniform size. Uniform size means that most of these crystals will be having the same size. It will not be like one big size and one very big crystal and one very small crystal. There will be some uniformity in terms of the size. Let's see the few examples. The first example we have is euhedral granular hornblendite. Hornblendite is actually a rock that is made up of mostly of hornblende mineral. You can see most of the crystals, they have very good, well preserved faces that represents that this is a euhedral, and these type of rocks are not very common, and they are like rare type of rock. It is very hard to get a rock where you have a very good euhedral shape and also almost the same size. And Some of these crystals, maybe you can say that they are subhedral. Some of them they have well preserved outer boundaries and crystal shape. However, few are what you can call as the subhedral. This is an example, and you can call this as euhedral granular, uniform size and crystals shapes as has been seen. Most of the crystals are euhedral. Okay, then we have the subhedral granular gabbro. In this, you can see that the most of the crystals have some of their crystal shapes as preserved, and most of these big crystals are almost of the uniform size. We can call it as a subhedral granular gabbro, and you can see that the bigger crystals are actually the plagioclase crystals, in which you have white and black boundaries. They represent that these are bigger chunks of plagioclase feldspar. However, the smaller crystals are orthopyroxene, augite, and magnetite, but they are minor. Okay, the next is granular trocolite. It is again very dominant type of plagioclase, and you see the crystals of the plagioclase. They don't have any definite type of crystal shapes. Okay, most of these crystals they look like they have a granular shape. They don't have any crystal. It seems like they have been transported, just like when you see a thin section of sandstone. अगर आप कभी सैंडस्टोन का थिन सेक्शन देखें तो उसमें भी आपको लगेगा कि that sometime these sands when minerals they are transported, the edges and the corners of these crystals sometimes they are like uh, broken and they become a shape of a grain that you can see. But here there are different igneous processes that are responsible for the formation of these type of anhedral granular troctolite. Normally, when petrologists describe these type of rocks, they don't call it as anhedral granular tractolite. They just call it as granular tractolite, because it is understood that when a term granular is used, it means that the crystals are already anhedral shape. Okay, these are some mutual relationships of crystals that we are going through. Okay. Here we have another example. You can see that there are some crystals, and this is actually from a granite. And you have a lot of microcline crystals, especially this is the signature. You see, there are twinning lines that you see parallel and perpendicular, and this is an indication that microcline is also a type of feldspar. And we also have if we can see the other, we don't have the other view, we just have the cross polarized view. Okay, see, most of these crystals make bulk of the rock, and you can see that the crystal shapes are not definite, and they are like sort of granular, that indicate that this is again a type of rock that we can call it as granular. You can see that there are some dark color minerals present here and there. These are actually the biotite crystals. It is an example of granular in granite, granular texture in granite. Here we have another example. It is called a lazulite. Lazulite is actually ultramafic rock and very common in uh, lower crustal levels, especially the upper mantle, and we can call it as an ultramafic rock. Here you can see that most of the grains that you see and the very definite style of fracturing that is indicative of olivine. I think we have seen maximum olivine in these classes, and you can see that the upper part is the upper view is the plain polarized view or the colorless view, and the lower one is the cross polarized. And you can see that there is a pale yellow mineral that is present here in this thin section, and there is another one that is light or colorless variety. Light or colorless variety that is very abundant is actually the olivine, and the pale yellow color that you see, जो आपको गहरा पीला रंग नजर आ रहा है इसमें, that is actually the pyroxenes. Okay. Well, you can see just an estimate that most of these most of these crystals are olivine crystals that are abundant, and the other thing that you can see that there is no crystal faces that are developed for this particular rock. Okay, and similarly, let's see the other view, and here you can see the same crystals as colorful varieties, and this is all olivine, and we have some pyroxene that is present in along a fracture or along a vein. Well, okay. This was all for today, and the idea was just to tell you about granular textures and anhedral granular, subhedral granular, euhedral granular, and the terminology mostly we used here was actually the same as we used in previous classes, and it is the same. If you guys have any questions related to today's class, you guys can